My name is Emily Ward. I am 38 years old, and I used to believe exhaustion was the heaviest thing I could carry home after a night shift. I was wrong. That morning, I came through my front door with my hospital badge still clipped to my shirt, my feet aching, my hair smelling faintly of antiseptic, and my phone buzzing like someone was trying to wake the dead. I thought it was another staffing emergency. Instead, it was my family group chat. My father had tagged me in a message like he was announcing something everyone had already agreed to. He wrote that my lake house would be used that weekend for a 3-day getaway, 20 relatives, Friday through Monday. Not asked, not suggested, decided. Before I could even process it, my mother followed with another message telling me to fill the fridge, make sure there were enough towels, and behave so I would not ruin the weekend for everyone. I stared at those words in my dark kitchen, still wearing the shoes I had spent all night running through hospital hallways in, and something inside me went completely still. That lake house was not a family resort. It was not a reward they earned for tolerating my success. It was the one peaceful place I had bought with years of missed holidays, double shifts, and days when I was too tired to speak. So I typed one word: no. For a moment, the chat went silent. Then my mother sent laughing emojis and wrote, "You really think you can stop us?" I did not answer. I did not explain. I simply put the phone down and let them believe whatever they wanted to believe. By Friday morning, when my father called screaming, "What did you do to the house?" I already knew they had discovered the difference between a daughter who argues and a woman who owns the door. Before I tell you what happened after that call, tell me where you are listening from and what the weather is like there. I just want to know how far this story can travel tonight. I work as a night shift house supervisor at a large hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina, which sounds organized when people hear the title, like I walk around with a clipboard and calmly make decisions under bright lights. The truth is much messier. My job begins when everyone else wants the night to stay quiet and it refuses to. A trauma comes through the emergency department doors. A nurse calls out sick when we are already short-staffed. A family demands answers no one has yet. A doctor needs a bed we do not have. A confused patient tries to leave against medical advice. A machine fails, a hallway fills, a unit calls for help, and somehow I am supposed to find a solution before the whole building feels the pressure. I have learned to drink coffee that went cold 2 hours ago. I have learned to answer 3 phones while reading a chart and listening to someone cry. I have learned that being calm does not mean you are not tired. It means tired cannot be allowed to be in charge. For years, I picked up extra shifts, covered holidays, and told myself there would be a reason for all of it. That reason became the lake house. It sits in a quiet, gated community near Lake Norman, close enough to Charlotte that I could drive there after work, but far enough that my body knew it had left the hospital behind. It was not a mansion. It was not some glass palace built to impress people. It was a warm, simple house with a dock, a screened porch, 2 guest rooms, and a small kitchen where the morning light came through like forgiveness. I bought it because I needed one place where no one was asking me to fix anything. My husband, Ryan, understood that before I even explained it. Ryan teaches physical education and coaches track at a public high school, and he has the kind of steadiness that makes a room feel less sharp. He never treated the lake house like a symbol. To him, it was where I could sleep without my phone under my pillow, where we could take the kayaks out before sunrise, where he could make pancakes while I sat on the dock with a blanket around my shoulders and remembered that I was a person, not just the woman everyone called when something went wrong. My father, Victor Harper, saw something different. Victor had spent most of his working life managing warehouse logistics, and retirement did not soften his need to direct people. If a chair was out of place, he moved it. If a conversation did not center him, he corrected it. If someone made a plan without him, he acted offended, like leadership had been stolen. He liked schedules, assignments, head counts, and the sound of his own voice explaining what everyone else should do. My mother, Diane, was softer on the outside but not easier to resist. She did not bark orders like my father. She sighed. She paused. She said things like, "I just thought family mattered to you," and then waited for guilt to do the work. That was how I grew up. Family came first. Family helped family. Family did not keep score. But somehow I was the only one expected to prove it. When my parents needed help replacing their HVAC system, I helped. When my brother Marcus needed money after another small business idea collapsed, I helped. When my younger sister Brooke needed a better camera and lighting equipment for her fitness content, I helped. When someone forgot a payment, needed a deposit, or had an emergency that somehow became mine by sunset, I helped. At first, they thanked me, then they expected me. Then they started acting insulted when I hesitated. The lake house changed everything because it gave them something bigger to want. The first time my father visited, he stood on the dock with his hands on his hips and said, "Now this is a place the whole family can enjoy." I smiled because I wanted to believe he meant it kindly. I did not understand then that he was not admiring what I had built. In his mind, he was already claiming it. The first time my father called it our lake place, I corrected him gently. We were at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, and he was on speakerphone with a cousin, bragging about how the Harpers finally had a spot on Lake Norman. I said, "My lake house," Dad, trying to keep my voice light. He looked at me like I had interrupted him over nothing and said, "You know what I mean." But I did know what he meant. I just did not want to say it out loud yet. After that, the requests came slowly enough that each one seemed too small to start a fight over. Marcus texted one Thursday asking whether the house was empty for the weekend because his kids needed fresh air. Before I answered, he asked if the kayaks were still under the dock and whether I kept extra life jackets in the mudroom. That was not a request. That was a man already packing. I told him I was not comfortable with last-minute visits. He called me 20 minutes later, irritated, saying he had already told his wife the kids could go. Somehow, my no became a problem I had created after his assumption. I gave in that time because I was too tired to argue. When Ryan and I went down the following weekend, one of the child-sized life jackets was missing. A kayak had a crack along the side, and there were muddy footprints dried across the screened porch. Marcus said kids are kids and told me I should not buy lake stuff if I was going to be uptight about people using it. Brooke was worse in a different way. She did not just use the house, she performed with it. She came down once for what she called a quiet wellness weekend, which turned into 3 days of filming workouts on my dock, smoothie videos in my kitchen, and sunrise stretches with my lake view behind her. I only knew about half of it because one of her followers commented, "Is this place available to rent?" I opened her page and there it was. My private home, tagged as the Harper Family Lake House. She had angled the camera so the dock, porch, and part of the neighborhood path were visible. My stomach went cold. I asked her to take the posts down. She told me I was overreacting and said people loved authentic family lifestyle content. I told her there was nothing authentic about pretending my home belonged to everyone. She accused me of being jealous because her platform was growing. That was the pattern. If I wanted privacy, I was selfish. If I wanted respect, I was controlling. If I wanted someone to pay for what they broke, I was making money more important than family. My mother always stepped in with the same polished sadness. She would tell me Marcus was under pressure. Brooke was chasing her dreams, and my father was just proud. Proud became the excuse for everything. Proud was why my father told relatives they could visit. Proud was why he gave people the impression that he had helped me buy the house. Proud was why he started saying things like, "We have room at the lake," whenever someone mentioned summer plans. I tried to create rules. I made a shared calendar. I wrote down guest limits, parking limits, quiet hours, and the community policy about visitors. I explained that no one could bring extra guests. I asked them not to share the address. I asked them not to post videos that showed the outside of the property. Everyone agreed because agreeing was easy when they had no intention of changing. Ryan saw it before I was ready to admit it. One Sunday evening, after we spent 2 hours cleaning crumbs from between sofa cushions and wiping sunscreen from the bathroom counter, he stood in the hallway holding a wet towel someone had left in a closet and said, "Emily, they do not ask anymore. They announce." I snapped at him, not because he was wrong, but because he was too right. I said he did not understand my family. He said quietly, "I think I understand them better than you want me to." I hated that sentence for about 5 minutes. Then I walked into the kitchen and saw a cabinet handle hanging loose, a sticky ring on the wood table, and a bag of trash Marcus had promised he took out sitting by the back door. That was when the truth settled over me. My family had not become careless overnight. They had learned that if they pushed far enough, I would clean, pay, forgive, and call it keeping the peace. They were not confused about my boundaries. They were counting on me not to enforce them. The weekend that finally changed me happened around the 4th of July, after one of the worst stretches I had ever worked at the hospital. We had been short-staffed for days. The emergency department had overflowed. A patient family had threatened to sue before anyone even understood what had happened. 2 nurses cried in the break room on the same night, and one of them asked me how much longer we were supposed to keep pretending we were fine. I did not have an answer for her because I was not fine either. By the time my last shift ended, my hands shook when I tried to unlock my car. Ryan took one look at me and said we were going to the lake. No big plans, no visitors, no hosting. Just sleep, quiet water, and whatever food we could throw into a cooler. I told my mother that clearly when she called as we were unpacking. She asked where I was, and I said Ryan and I were at the lake house and that I needed a quiet weekend. She made that soft, understanding sound I had mistaken for love for most of my life, and said, "Of course. Honey, rest." 3 hours later, I heard tires on gravel, then another vehicle, then a third. I stepped onto the porch and saw my parents getting out first, followed by Marcus, his wife, their kids, Brooke with a camera bag slung over her shoulder, and 2 cousins carrying folding chairs. They had coolers, bags of charcoal, beach towels, pool noodles, a Bluetooth speaker, and the confidence of people who had never believed my no was real. My father came up the steps smiling like he had done something generous. He said, "See? This is exactly what you needed. Family around you." I remember looking at Ryan. He did not say anything. He just waited, giving me space to choose. I should have told everyone to leave right then. Instead, the old training took over. I managed. I reminded people about shoes in the house. I pointed to the outdoor trash bins. I asked the kids not to run near the dock. I told Brooke not to film the front of the property. Nobody listened for longer than a few minutes. By afternoon, music was blasting from the porch, wet towels were thrown over dining chairs, the kids were dragging lake water across the wood floors, and Marcus was trying to pull the cracked kayak back into use with duct tape, like that solved anything. Brooke invited 2 friends because she said the light on the water was perfect for content. My mother opened cabinets looking for serving bowls and acted offended when I asked her to stop rearranging my kitchen. My father sat outside directing people like he owned the dock, telling one cousin where to park and another to move coolers inside before the ice melted. Then the first warning came. A neighbor texted me asking if everything was okay because cars were blocking part of the lane. 15 minutes later, the community patrol stopped by and reminded me about guest limits, parking rules, noise rules, and safety near the dock. I apologized for a gathering I had never agreed to host. That sentence should have embarrassed everyone. It did not. My father told the patrol officer we were just having a family holiday, then laughed like rules were for other people. By dinner, I could barely stand the sound of my own house. Someone spilled barbecue sauce on the porch rug. One of the kids dropped a wet towel over Ryan's book. Marcus backed his truck too far along the side path and crushed 2 landscape lights. Brooke was filming a video in my kitchen, smiling into the camera while saying, "Nothing heals like a family lake weekend." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked her to stop filming. She rolled her eyes and said I was ruining the vibe. That was when my father heard us. He stood from his chair on the porch, still holding a paper plate, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Why buy a place this big if you are going to act small about sharing it?" The whole porch went quiet, not because anyone planned to defend me. It was the quiet people use when they know someone has been cruel, but do not want the discomfort of saying so. My mother looked away. Marcus suddenly became interested in the grill. Brooke checked her phone. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he waited for me. I looked at my father and finally saw the truth without decoration. He did not think my lake house was proof that I had worked hard. He thought it was proof that I had stepped above the place he assigned me, and if he could turn it into a family resource, then my success would not feel like mine anymore. It would feel like his. The next morning, after everyone left, Ryan and I cleaned for nearly 6 hours. We found crushed chips under the sofa, a broken dock ladder, sunscreen on the guest room comforter, a dent in the outdoor table, and a formal written warning from the community management. I paid for the lights. I paid for the dock repair. I apologized to neighbors who had been more patient than my own family. On the drive back to Charlotte, I sat with my head against the window, too tired even to cry. Ryan finally asked, "How many more times are you going to call disrespect loyalty?" I did not answer. But inside, something answered for me. No more. After that 4th of July weekend, I started changing in ways my family noticed immediately. Not dramatic changes at first. I did not make speeches. I did not send a long emotional message. I simply stopped leaving doors open for people who had proven they would walk through them without knocking. I changed the smart lock code at the lake house and removed the old backup code my father had insisted on having for emergencies. I told everyone that visits had to be approved by me in writing, with dates, names, and the number of guests clearly stated. No extra people, no filming for business, no sharing the address, no using the dock, kayaks, or house as if it were a community clubhouse. My father reacted like I had declared war. He said written permission sounded cold. I told him cold was better than confused. Marcus tested the new version of me first. He called one afternoon saying he had a real opportunity this time. He wanted to expand his pressure washing and boat cleaning side business, and because the lake area had money, he said it would be stupid not to try. Then came the part I knew was coming. He needed me to co-sign a loan or front him the down payment for equipment. I asked for a business plan. He got quiet. I asked for last year's income and expenses. He said I was talking to him like a banker. I said, "You are asking me to act like one." He hung up on me. By dinner, my mother called, voice heavy with disappointment, saying Marcus felt humiliated. I told her being asked basic questions before risking my credit was not humiliation. It was adulthood. She said success had made me hard. Brooke came next. She wanted to host what she called a wellness retreat weekend at the lake house with a small group of women who followed her online. She said it would be peaceful, tasteful, good exposure, and possibly paid if a sponsor confirmed. I asked why my private home was part of her business plan. She laughed like I was missing something obvious and said, "Family supports? Family." I said, "Support does not mean turning my home into your studio." She sent me 3 paragraphs about how I never believed in her and how I only helped when I could control the story. I did not answer. That silence made her angrier than any argument would have. My father waited 2 days before calling because he liked to let pressure build. When he finally did, he did not yell at first. He sounded wounded, which was his favorite costume when authority failed. He said I had forgotten where I came from. He said he and my mother had sacrificed so I could become the kind of woman who now looked down on everyone else. I told him I did not look down on anyone. I was just done letting people make plans with my money, my time, and my property. Then he said, "After everything we invested in you, this is how you repay us?" The word invested sat in my chest like a stone. Invested. Like I was not a daughter. Like I was an account that had matured. Like every meal, school ride, birthday gift, and childhood roof over my head had secretly been a loan agreement I never signed. I told him children are not retirement plans. He called me disrespectful and hung up. For a few weeks, the family went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, punishment quiet. My mother stopped sending her usual check-in messages. Marcus ignored me at a birthday dinner. Brooke posted vague quotes online about people who forget their roots. My father acted polite in public and cold in private. But I noticed something important during that silence. My home felt lighter. My marriage felt calmer. My phone did not make my stomach drop as often. I was sad. Yes, but I was not constantly being used. That was when I understood why boundaries feel cruel to people who benefited from you not having any. They are not reacting to your disrespect. They are grieving the loss of access. The silence ended when Brooke posted the graphic. I saw it on a Thursday morning after another night shift, while I was sitting at the kitchen counter in Charlotte with toast I was too tired to eat. Her story showed a filtered photo of my dock glowing at sunset, with bold white letters across it that read, "Harper Family Lake Getaway, 3 days at Lake Norman." Underneath were little icons for boating, barbecue, brunch, and family memories. For a second, I thought it had to be old. Then I saw the date. This weekend. My hands went cold before I even opened the family group chat. The plan was already there, built in detail, as if my permission were some old formality no one respected anymore. 20 relatives, Friday arrival, Saturday lake day, Saturday night barbecue, Sunday family brunch, Monday morning cleanup, though I knew that meant Monday morning leaving the mess for me. My father had assigned rooms. He and my mother were taking the master bedroom because, as he wrote, parents deserve comfort. Marcus, his wife, and the kids would take the larger guest room and den. Brooke wanted the room with the best morning light because she needed to film a partnership reel. Cousins were bringing air mattresses. Someone asked if the dock could handle a rented pontoon pickup. Someone else asked whether I had enough towels for the kids. Then my mother wrote the sentence that made my vision sharpen. "Fill the fridge and behave. People are driving a long way." I looked at those words and felt something inside me close, not in anger, but in decision. I typed one word. No. The chat froze for almost a minute. Then my mother sent laughing emojis and wrote, "You really think you can stop us?" My father did not even respond. That was the most insulting part. He did not need to argue because he believed the matter was already settled. They were all still speaking to the version of me who used to panic and explain and compromise until everyone else got what they wanted. But that woman had cleaned barbecue sauce from her own porch after being humiliated in front of guests. That woman had paid for broken dock repairs after being told she was selfish. That woman had gone back to work exhausted while everyone else called it a great weekend. I was not that woman anymore. I took screenshots of everything. The room assignments, the grocery instructions, Brooke's public post, my mother's laughing emojis, the messages about extra guests, rented boats, coolers, parking, and kids sleeping in the den. Then I opened my laptop and started closing every door they had mistaken for weakness. I called the Lake Norman Community Management Office first. I told them no gathering had been approved at my address, and that anyone claiming to attend a Harper family getaway did not have my permission to enter. The manager remembered the 4th of July warning and did not sound surprised. She reminded me that the community had strict limits on overnight guests, vehicle numbers, dock access, quiet hours, and short-term event use. 20 people would violate more than one rule before they even unloaded a cooler. I asked her to cancel every old guest pass connected to my relatives. Then I sent a written confirmation by email, naming only 2 approved people for the weekend, me and Ryan, no exceptions. Next, I changed the smart lock code. I removed the emergency access code. I checked the camera batteries, turned on motion alerts, and set the alarm to notify me if anyone tried the doors, windows, or back deck. Then I arranged for an extra security patrol near the community gate during the expected arrival window. I was not trying to create a scene. I was trying to prevent one from entering my home. Ryan came into the kitchen while I was reviewing the email confirmations. He read over my shoulder, then looked at me carefully. He asked, "Can you live with what happens after this?" I knew what he meant. My father would explode. My mother would cry. Marcus would accuse me of ruining things for the kids. Brooke would act like I had sabotaged her future. Some relatives would call me cold before they ever asked what really happened. I looked at the screenshots, the canceled passes, and the new lock code. Then I thought about the alternative. 20 people in my house, my bedroom assigned to my parents, my dock used without permission, my food, my towels, my peace, my name, all handed out by people who did not respect the word no. I told Ryan, I can live with them being angry. I cannot live with letting them teach me again that my boundaries are decorations. On Friday morning, we drove to the lake house with groceries for 2, not 20. My phone buzzed the whole way. Marcus asked where overflow parking would be. Brooke asked if the master bathroom had good lighting for a before and after transition. My mother asked whether I had bought enough breakfast food. Nobody mentioned my no. Nobody asked if I had changed my mind. They were all driving toward a house they believed my guilt would unlock before they arrived. At 1:37, my camera app showed the first SUV at the gate, then another, then another. Coolers strapped down, beach chairs in trunks, kids in back seats, my father in the driver's seat, leaning forward like impatience could open a barrier. I watched the guards step out. The cars stopped. And for the first time in my life, my father's certainty met a locked gate that did not care who he thought he was. The security guard called me from the gate with a professional calm that almost made the whole thing feel ordinary. He said a group was insisting they had permission to access my property for a family weekend. In the background, I could hear my father's voice rising, sharp and offended, the same tone that had made rooms go quiet my whole life. I told the guard they did not have permission. I told him no one in that group was approved to enter. He thanked me, and before the call even ended, my own phone lit up with my father's name. I let it ring twice. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to feel the difference between being summoned and choosing to answer. When I picked up, he did not say hello. He screamed, "What did you do to the house?" I looked around my quiet kitchen, at the 2 coffee mugs Ryan had set out beside the sink, and said, "I protected it." He started shouting that people had driven hours, that children were tired, that I was embarrassing him in front of the family. That last part told me everything. He was not worried about the children. He was not worried about the weekend. He was worried about being seen clearly. I said, "I told you no. This is private property. No one has permission to enter." Then I hung up. The family chat exploded so fast that messages stacked on top of each other. Marcus wrote that I should have warned people. I sent a screenshot of my no. Brooke wrote that I had ruined a planned content weekend and made her look unprofessional. I sent a screenshot of her public post using my doc before I had agreed to anything. My mother wrote that I was being cruel and humiliating my father. I sent her own message back to the chat, the one telling me to fill the fridge and behave. For a few seconds there was silence. Not peaceful silence. Exposed silence. Then one of my aunts asked the question that changed the whole direction of the day. "Victor, did Emily actually approve this?" My father did not answer. Another relative wrote that he had told them everything was arranged. A cousin said she had taken 2 days off because Victor promised the house was open for everyone. Someone else asked why room assignments had been made if I had never said yes. The word yes became the center of the whole disaster. Not family, not generosity, not tradition. Consent. My father hated that because consent was the one thing he had skipped. He called again, and this time his voice was lower, almost dangerous. He said, "After everything I have done for you, you are going to shame me like this?" I said, "You shamed yourself when you promised people access to a house you do not own." He said I was ungrateful. I said gratitude is not surrender. He said he raised me. I said yes. And now I am an adult telling you no. He started to raise his voice again. So I ended the call. Outside the gate, the perfect lake getaway collapsed under the weight of its own lie. Some relatives left immediately, angry and embarrassed. Others stayed in their cars arguing, scrolling through hotel apps, calling rental companies, and asking my father how this had happened. It was peak lake season. The closest hotels with rooms were expensive, and several were already full. The pontoon rental deposit was not refundable. The barbecue catering order had a cancellation fee. Brooke's photographer wanted payment for the blocked time. Marcus had promised his kids a weekend on the water and now had to explain why they were sitting in a hot car outside a gate. My father, who had planned to look generous using my house, my food, my dock, and my labor, spent the afternoon calling motels 40 minutes away and putting rooms on his own credit card, while relatives asked questions he could not answer without admitting the truth. He had not been a generous father. He had been generous with something that was not his. That was the part that satisfied me most, though not in a cruel way. I did not need him ruined. I needed him revealed. For years, he had borrowed status from my work. He had made my lake house sound like proof of his success as a parent. He had let people believe he had authority because correcting that lie would have made him smaller. But a locked gate is honest. It does not care about family stories, old guilt, or who thinks he deserves the master bedroom. By evening, Brooke had deleted the getaway post. Marcus stopped texting me directly and started arguing with my father in the group chat. My mother sent one final message saying she hoped I was proud of myself. I did not respond. I was not proud that children were disappointed. I was not proud that relatives wasted gas or that the day became uncomfortable. I was proud that the discomfort finally belonged to the people who created it. Over the next week, a few relatives reached out privately. One cousin apologized and admitted she had believed my father helped pay for the house because he always called it the Harper Lake Place. Another said she never would have come if she had known I had said no. Their apologies did not erase years of entitlement, but they mattered because the story was no longer controlled by my father's version of events. After that, I made permanent changes. No more open access. No more family visits without written approval. No more financial help for problems people created and handed to me like unpaid invoices. No more answering calls where someone screamed, cried, or tried to turn love into debt. My parents did not apologize. My father sent a long email accusing me of arrogance, cruelty, betrayal, and forgetting my blood. I read it once, saved it, and did not answer. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is proof that the hook no longer catches. The following Saturday, Ryan and I sat on the dock with coffee while the lake was still gray with morning. There were no strange cars in the driveway, no coolers scratching my floors, no one using my kitchen as a studio, no one assigning themselves my bedroom. The house felt quiet in a way that reached my bones. I realized then that peace is not just the absence of noise. Peace is knowing the door will stay closed when you close it. The lesson took me 38 years to learn, but I hope someone hears it faster than I did. Family is important, but family is not a free pass to ignore consent. Helping people does not mean giving them ownership over your life. Being grateful to your parents does not mean handing them your home, your money, your marriage, or your health whenever they demand proof of loyalty. Real love asks. Real love listens. Real love respects the answer, even when the answer is no. Boundaries are not betrayal. They are education for the people around you and protection for the person you are trying to become. The money and effort you spend building a peaceful life are not debts you owe forever. Kindness without self-respect becomes a doorway for exploitation. That weekend, my father wanted a free 3-day getaway for 20 relatives because he believed I would rather suffer quietly than make him look foolish publicly. What he got instead was the first consequence he could not shout his way out of. And what I got was something I should have claimed long before the gate ever closed. My home, my peace, and my right to say no.
Behind this video is a team working hard to create a story that feels emotional, dramatic, and meaningful for the audience. Please remember that everything here is fictional and made only for entertainment and educational purposes. We hope it leaves viewers with a lesson about strength, dignity, and the power of finally choosing yourself.